Welcome to Cancer Talks, a podcast sharing stories of personal transformation and collective healing from people who have been touched by cancer. My name is Cheryl Buck, and I will be guiding today's conversation. Our guest, Dr. Patrick Vickers, is a chiropractor by training and founder of the Advanced Gerson Therapy Clinic in Rosarito, Mexico. The Gerson therapy is one of the most heavily censored cancer treatments in the world. A therapy based in nutrition, it challenges many core assumptions of conventional medicine. I received treatment at Dr. Vickers' clinic in 2016, and I'm honored to have him as my guest today. This episode is not intended to provide medical advice, but instead to raise awareness about the censoring of alternatives of standard treatment, such as chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Dr. Vickers, I'm so happy to have you here on Cancer Talks today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's great to be on here with you.
Wonderful. I just want to say something as we're starting out here that I want to remind myself and everyone that on Cancer Talks, we don't give medical advice. What we do is share stories from people who have been touched by cancer. But today, we're going to tell a true story. And this story that you're going to share with us is over 100 years old.
That's right.
And it's a story that not just people with cancer need to hear, I think, but anyone who has had a chronic degenerative disease or knows someone who has, which is kind of everybody on the planet, probably, you would agree. And this story is filled with intrigue and miracles and suppression of information and brilliant minds and
that's right.
And commitment. So anyway, I'm just so thrilled to introduce you, Dr. Patrick Vickers, you started the Advanced Gerson Clinic in Rosarito, Mexico, about 10 years ago. We're going to talk about why Mexico. So I want to welcome you with open arms to Cancer Talks. So
thank you.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing, something that I'm curious about is your relationship with cancer before you started the Gerson Clinic.
Well, that's an interesting question. I have to be honest with you. My entire childhood leading up to being introduced to the Gerson therapy, I honestly cannot say I had experience with cancer.
Interesting.
In my family, in my surroundings, I can't say that cancer had ever really affected me. But what I will say is, when I was 11 years old, ever since I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a chiropractor. A friend of our family's was a chiropractor, and they were staying at our home for the weekend. And their 5-year-old boy was sleeping with me in my room one night when he woke up in the middle of the night with a cough that wouldn't stop. He just kept on coughing. And he coughed for like 20 to 30 minutes straight.
Wow.
Finally, his father had heard him. It was, 3:30 in the morning. His father heard him, came upstairs, lied him on the end of the bed, adjusted his neck both ways, and the boy stopped coughing on a dime.
Wow.
and he didn't cough the rest of the night.
Oh my goodness.
And I was 11 years old, and I remember saying to myself, that's what I'm going to do for a living. And so here I am, a year away from graduating chiropractic school in 1996, when Charlotte Gerson, Dr. Gerson's last living daughter, came and spoke at my school to talk about her father and his therapy. And the moment she opened her mouth, I knew that that's what I would spend the rest of my life doing.
What did she say? How did she start out? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, obviously, she just started talking about how her father was reversing virtually every single degenerative disease, and most notably advanced terminal cancer, and how he had been completely censored up until his death in 1959, not just censored, but ostracized and destroyed by the powers that be up until 1959 when he ultimately died. And as a chiropractor, you understand that, because the medical and pharmaceutical industry, they've tried to destroy the profession of chiropractic. And in 1987, the American Medical Association actually lost a court case. A federal district court judge in Illinois found the entire American Medical Association guilty of conspiracy for trying to eliminate chiropractic as a profession. The court case is actually called Wilk versus the AMA, 1987. And so, as a chiropractor, you clearly understood the corruption behind the pharmaceutical and the medical industry, but I never thought that it would reach the parameters of what we're dealing with as it relates to cancer and the Gerson therapy. And with that said, all the other degenerative diseases as well. So, so that's what stuck out to me the most. And then, immediately after she spoke, I just delved into the Gerson therapy for the remaining year of my chiropractic education. And here we are now, 26 years later, now that Charlotte's gone and her son Howard passed away shortly thereafter. By default, I've become, the face of the Gerson therapy. So, so that's my history, in a nutshell.
Well, I think you are a fantastic representative of the Gerson therapy. Will you tell us about what exactly is the Gerson therapy? You want to start there?
Yes, of course. The Gerson therapy is an intensive and highly specific dietary and detoxification protocol. The foundations are the patients are getting 20 pounds of organic fruits and vegetables every single day, mostly in the form of juices, as you know, but there are also 3 organic meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that are given on a daily basis. But a majority of those, arguably somewhere in the realm of 16 to 17 pounds of that, is in the form of juices, which are fresh pressed off a masticating and press juicer, and they have to be drunk right away because as you expose them, to the air, they begin to break down quite quickly. So the patients are getting 20 pounds of organic fruits and vegetables every single day. What else are they getting? Well, you have to detoxify the body. Not only are these people coming in from, a lifestyle, decades of a lifestyle of toxicity, from diet, from cosmetics, things we put on our body, things in our environment. But the cancer and the disease processes themselves are also generating massive amounts of toxicity. And when you put them on the diet and the juicing, that actually generates more toxicity as you destroy cancer tissue and disease tissue and begin to rebuild. So we have to detoxify the body. And as you know, the way the Gerson therapy does it is through coffee enemas. There is not a more potent way to detoxify the human body than a coffee enema. And so our patients are getting, 4 to 5 coffee enemas per day. And then, the remainder of the protocol, as we talk about the Gerson therapy, the basic Gerson therapy, is a specific supplement protocol. And that specific supplement protocol is all based on building up and restoring proper metabolism, which metabolism by definition is the breakdown of food into energy. So everything we do is based on that very principle of restoring proper metabolism. And the specific supplement protocol is geared towards that. Now, at our Advanced Gerson Therapy Clinic, we've taken Dr. Gerson's basic tenets and we've expounded on them by using other therapies to enhance his basic core principles, which would be oxygen therapies, for example, because in order to convert food into energy, that requires oxygen. And so we have oxygen therapies at our clinic to enhance the Gerson protocol. And we have a few other therapies as well, like Laetrile, dendritic cell treatment, GCMAF. So these are the things that compound, the basic Gerson therapy into what we call the advanced Gerson therapy. Today, the conditions that we've created in our body, we've inhibited the body's ability to oxygenate cells. And that keeps the body from efficiently breaking down food into energy. So if you can't get oxygen into the cell to convert sugar into energy, sugar is going to break down into lactic acid, and lactic acid is going to feed disease ultimately and break down your metabolism. Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about coffee enemas and how they work? What do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. They're completely scientific. So anyone who says, now that's ridiculous, Sticking coffee up my rear end is just not something I imagine can be beneficial for me. Well, the opposite is true, and it's pure science. So your liver, it produces an enzyme called glutathione transferase. Glutathione transferase is one of the most potent detoxifying enzymes in the human body. It literally goes around the human body, mopping up toxins, free radicals, and eliminating them through the intestines and the kidneys. Now, how does the liver do that? Well, the way the liver makes glutathione transferase is through palmitic acid. And properly roasted organic coffee, not the drinking type of coffee, believe it or not, is loaded with palmitic acid. And it has been demonstrated scientifically in studies that when you do one coffee enema, just one, the production of glutathione transferase by the body goes up 600 to 700% greater than normal.
Wow.
There is not a more potent way to detoxify the human body than a coffee enema. Well, people say, well, then why can't I drink it? Well, the reason why you can't drink it is because first, it goes through the digestive tract. And a lot of those palmitic acid salts get used up in the digestive tract, get broken down and eaten up in the digestive tract, and don't make it directly to the liver. Secondly, when you drink coffee, its effects on the adrenal glands are actually quite dramatic. If I do a coffee enema, I feel amazing. I feel amazing after one coffee enema, which is roughly, you could argue 2 cups of coffee drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But if I drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee, I'm a disaster. And that's because of its effects on the adrenal glands. And we know that 1 drop of adrenaline, pure adrenaline, could kill a horse. That's how toxic adrenaline is. And it's secreted in such small amounts in our body just to maintain, whatever the need for adrenaline would be. But nevertheless, so the palmitic acid salts get used up in drinking, and the effects on the adrenal glands. Now, when you take it rectally, how does it get to the liver? It's simple. Sitting right there when it enters rectally are what? Your hemorrhoidal veins. Your hemorrhoids, right? Hemorrhoidal veins. The coffee's immediately absorbed into the hemorrhoidal vein. Well, the hemorrhoidal vein carries it to the portal vein. And where does the portal vein end and dump its contents? In the liver. So that's how it goes directly to the liver. Anything you put in rectally, it immediately goes to the liver within minutes. And that's why, I don't know if you've heard about it, but if you drink a bottle of vodka, you're going to get really sick. But if you took a bottle of vodka rectally, you would be dead within 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And believe it or not, really dumb people have done that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. They've done that. They've taken vodka rectally and they were dead within 30 minutes. Why? Because it went straight to the liver without being metabolized by the digestive tract. And that's what makes the coffee enema so powerful.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Oh boy. Okay, so you're talking about, I haven't heard you say anything that is illegal. You're talking about fruits? Not yet. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Well, we should probably jump right to that, but let me ask this question first. So, fruits and vegetables, coffee enemas, and you have to do this in Mexico, or you have to do this outside of the United States.
Imagine that. So we just talked about coffee. We just talked about coffee and fruits and vegetables.
Correct.
Yeah. And oxygen therapies.
Yeah.
And so why on earth would we have to do this in Mexico? And here's why. If I opened up this clinic in the United States, I would go to jail and the clinic would get shut down. This is the reality. The pharmaceutical and medical industry are so powerful and they control our politicians, because who do you think is paying the campaigns of these politicians? The pharmaceutical and medical industry are one of the leading campaign contributors and lobbying groups in Washington, D.C. and around the entire country in individual states. So they have gotten our politicians to pass laws making it illegal to do the Gerson therapy in the treatment of cancer and, for that matter, other degenerative diseases. By law, I cannot claim to be treating cancer and other diseases with nutrition.
I've had this question about is there any, let's say, does chemotherapy have any place in cancer treatment?
That's a great question. Standard chemotherapy as you and I know it, no, not at all. So in Mexico, we actually can utilize something, and we very rarely do, but we can. It's called insulin potentiated chemotherapy. You can only get it in like 3 or 4 places in the United States, and you will pay an arm and a leg. And so insulin potentiated chemotherapy is standard chemotherapy drugs. That's what it is. But it's only 10 to 15% of the standard dose. Because if you can potentiate chemotherapy with insulin, you make it highly specific to cancer cells where you don't need such a high dosage. Cancer cells have exponentially more insulin receptor sites than normal cells. And so if you potentiate chemotherapy with insulin, it becomes highly specific to the cancer cell. So you don't get the hair loss, you don't get the nausea and vomiting, your nails don't fall off, you don't get the skin lesions. And it's just as, if not more effective than the standard 100% dose of chemotherapy that which we know quite often kills the patient before the cancer does. And so it does play a role. When tumors and the extent of the cancer in the body is so great that we must get the upper hand on the disease, we will institute insulin potentiated chemotherapy. And that's just to be able to get the upper hand so that the therapy, the Gerson therapy, has a chance to work.
What does potentiate mean? How does that, can you explain that?
Yeah, you potentiate the chemotherapy with insulin. You give the chemotherapy with insulin.
Oh.
And it carries it to the cancer cells, which have exponentially more insulin receptor sites.
I got it. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So you don't do that very often. And
we don't. We only do it when the patient has really high tumor loads and they haven't had chemo.
Have not had chemo. Okay. Do you get many people that that come to the clinic that have had chemotherapy?
Oh, geez. I'd say over half.
Oh my gosh.
You know, unfortunately, Cheryl, they weren't in the situation you were, where you did surgery and that was it, right?
Right.
And you came in at a really good place. I'd say most of our patients come stage 3, stage 4. They've done standard medical treatment once, if not twice. And now there's nothing left. And so now they're frantically looking for something that can help them. And by that time, it's usually too late. You know, some of those people we can save, but I'd have to say most of them, we probably won't. Now we can probably extend their lives, right? But they come so brutalized by the medical profession. It's frightening.
Yes. One of the great things, and there are many, of going to your clinic, the Gerson Clinic in Mexico, is that we have 3 meals a day, and we have to get out of our rooms and eat with people. And so I met some fabulous people, and one of my favorites was Richard. His name was Richard, and he came with having had 24 rounds of chemotherapy.
Oh gosh!
And it's just, he did.
That's
pass
four.
away.
That's four. That's 4 separate rounds because it's 6 per round.
Yeah.
I mean, I typically he had 4. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of people having.
Yeah. Yes, and he was a school teacher. He was charming, and he looked like a skeleton by that time. And boy, I was just rooting for him. His wife was with him. We stayed in touch for a while after, and so that's when I heard that he had passed away, which wasn't a surprise, but it was just heartbreaking.
Yeah, you know,
So,
it's it's a double-edged sword, my work, you know, because you sit down with these people and you're with them for 3 weeks,
yes.
and a lot of them appear normal, you know, and inside they just have this thing absolutely
Yeah.
destroying them, and we can't cure everyone, you know, and for your listeners, if there's anyone out there in natural medicine claiming they have a 75, 80%, 90% cure rate, they're lying through their teeth. We have the best cure rates in the world. That's why 8 movies have been done on our work. No other therapy has that kind of exposure on an international scale. Why? Because for 100 years, no other therapy could hold a candlestick to the Gerson therapy and its ability to reverse advanced cancer. And if we're taking stage 3, stage 4 and reversing 40%, completely reversing 40%, that would be a generous number.
Yeah.
So anyone out there making these claims that they're good, you know, curing these terminal cancers at exorbitant rates, they're just lying.
Speaking of the movies, what is it, 8 movies?
Yeah, I think 8
Excuse me.
movies now at this
Yeah,
point.
8 movies. What's your favorite one? Is there one that you would recommend?
Yeah,
Tell me the title.
Yeah, 2. Dying to Have Known.
Dying to Have Known.
Yeah, and I really liked Food Matters, even though Food Matters wasn't on the Gerson therapy. Half of the time it's talking about the Gerson therapy. It's specifically mentioned by Dr. Gerson. Yeah. You know, so I really like Food Matters, but my favorite Gerson movie is Dying to Have Known.
Okay, good.
Now, I haven't seen a couple of the other ones, The Food Cure. I think Food Heals just came out. You know, I haven't seen those, but, you know, to date, Dying to Have Known is my favorite.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I have a question that one of the things that fascinates me the most, and I'm really looking forward to your answer to this. So, Gerson said that cancer is a process. You can't cut it out. Why are we cutting it out?
Why are we cutting out tumors?
Yeah, why are we cutting out tumors, cutting off breasts like that? If cancer is a process, what did he mean by that? What did Dr. Gerson mean by that?
Well,
and he did say that, right?
Well, I'm not sure he said that it can't be cut out, that you can't take a tumor off of the body. You can't take it off and expect that it's not going to come back.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. It's
well,
like
exactly.
You can't cut it out and say, okay, I'm cancer free now, because you have a process going on in your body.
Well, we addressed that, right? That's metabolism. If you read Dr. Gerson's book he published before he died, one word he mentions over and over and over again, and that is metabolism. Cancer is the ultimate breakdown of metabolism in the human body. And if you don't reverse that process that's broken down metabolism over decades of improper living, then you can cut, burn, and poison anything, and it's going to come back. And we see this religiously. Do you know how many people call me on a weekly basis that were diagnosed, did chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, sent home with a clean bill of health? They've been living their same lives for the last 2 to 7 years. And it is about 2 to 7 years where they come back and they're calling me now and the cancer's back. Only this time, well, how can the cancer possibly be back? A breast cancer, both breasts were cut off with the mastectomy. So how could breast cancer be back? Because cancer's never local. It's never local. Even though a tumor may show up locally, it is systemic. And so if you haven't radically changed your lifestyle, then, you know, it's going to come back. And we see this day after day after day. So you can't just cut it out and expect to live your life, and the processes that cause the cancer are going to, you know, go away.
Yeah.
But, to answer your question, anytime you can get a tumor
Mm-hmm.
out of or off of the body, you take a huge burden off the immune system.
Yes.
Because the immune system's trying to fight that tumor, and those tumors are monsters.
Yes.
And if you can get the monster out of the body can now start to clean up and mop up the residual stuff that's, roaming around the body.
Yes.
But I do want to say something real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer is a natural bodily process. I have cancer. Claire has cancer. You have cancer. We all have cancer. It's a natural daily bodily process for the immune system to destroy cancer cells, digest them, and eliminate them. That's a normal bodily process.
Mm.
So at what point does the immune system lose that capacity to maintain control over that natural process, and cancer gets the upper hand on the immune system rather than the immune system getting the upper hand on the cancer? Well,
Right.
it's about the 5th decade of life. The average age of a person coming into my clinic is typically between 50 and 60. And you can deal with that onslaught of improper living decade after decade after decade until about the 5th decade of life. And that's when the damage has ultimately been done, to the point where the immune system no longer can keep a normal bodily process in check and tumors start to form.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very good to hear.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the average age.
Oof.
And it's getting younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from when I started 27 years ago to now, what's coming into the clinics now that compared to what's coming in 27 years ago, it's like night and day. And they're just getting younger and younger.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, let's so cancer is the main reason that you have the clinic. What I've come to understand is that this treatment, the Gerson treatment, can help with, well, on your website, 52 other chronic conditions. Can you talk about that?
And those are just the ones that were on the top of my head, right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about that. And let's use someone as a classic example. How about Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Albert Schweitzer?
Okay.
Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who, for those who aren't familiar with him, he was actually called the greatest Christian of his generation, right? Well, he called Dr. Max Gerson the greatest genius in medical history. Why? Well, 8 years before Schweitzer won the Nobel Prize, he had severely advanced diabetes, and Dr. Gerson cured him in 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, he had him off all his medications, and he was completely cured of his advanced diabetes in 6 weeks. Now, go back before that, Dr. Schweitzer's wife, Helena, had terminal tuberculosis. She literally had 6 to 12 months to live. And Dr. Gerson completely cured her of her tuberculosis. Fast forward, their daughter, Raina, when she was just 4 years old, Dr. Schweitzer's daughter, Raina, when she was just 4 years old, she had a completely undecipherable skin condition, cured within weeks on the Gerson therapy. So there's diabetes, there's TB, and there are skin conditions, all treated the same way, that were completely cured by Dr. Gerson's therapy. The reality is we're reversing virtually every single degenerative disease. That is the reality.
Do you get many people that come for things other than cancer at the clinic?
Unfortunately, not enough, because the 8 movies that have chronicled our work have all chronicled our ability to reverse advanced terminal cancer, because that's the most dramatic, right?
Right.
But we get people coming in for a detox, or we get people coming in for an autoimmune disease, or maybe high blood pressure. But look, the reality is, unless you're dying, most people aren't going to make those dramatic changes.
True.
So we don't get as much as I would really like, because it is really exciting to see how the people respond with other conditions to the Gerson therapy. Like, take extensive psoriasis, for example. I mean, someone who just has psoriasis all over their body.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 months, it's gone.
Wow.
And I mean gone.
Yeah.
And they've been on drug therapy for years.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
boy.
take someone with scheduled for a triple or quadruple bypass surgery. Within 4 to 6 weeks, we're canceling their surgeries.
Wow.
Because we completely can open up arterial systems that are blocked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no, it's madness if you think about it.
Yes.
It's just madness.
Yes. Frustrating.
Yeah,
Madness.
it is.
Well, I was by the way, your website, it's changed a lot since 6 years ago, and I think it's really great. And one, I loved your trip to Poland, where Dr. Gerson was born. I can't pronounce the name of the town.
Wagrowiec.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
Wagrowiec.
Wagrowiec. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was fascinating to me to be able to place him, put him in a town and know that that's where he grew up. And
Yep.
Also, I was listening to some of the interviews that you were doing with patients, and in one of them, you said that. Excuse me, one sec. In one of the videos that I watched, your patients were saying, or your patient was saying, that cancer was the best thing that had ever happened to them.
Oh yeah.
And I think you said only good has come from it.
He said that.
He said that, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the main premise of Cancer Talks, is that personal transformation is basically offered to people who get a cancer diagnosis.
That's right.
All the people that we have interviewed who have had cancer have a version of that. They may not call it transformation, they might call it something else, but that's what they're saying. So how prevalent is that when you're talking to people that are at the clinic, or is maybe that too soon for people to realize that they were having an experience of transformation?
Yeah, that's great. People do start to go through the transformation at my clinic.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in the midst of people going through the same thing, they're actually going through the therapy, because as you go through the therapy and you're actually living it, you are getting a taste of the truth. And what have we heard our entire lives? The truth shall set you free. and that's the reality. We were living in darkness. We were living in lies. And it wasn't until cancer hit us that we were forced to face the reality. And when we're forced to face that reality and we stumble upon the truth, an amazing transformation takes place. Just in my life, coming across the Gerson therapy, the incredible power that comes with that. When you're exposed to the truth about something such as the Gerson therapy on such a deep level, it opens your eyes to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that causes a transformation to take place. And so you're referring to Michael Kaler, who he had 6 to 12 months to live with lymphoma. And which is, by the way, is probably our greatest success rate. Lymphoma is. It is our greatest success, that and melanoma. I can explain that in a second. But anyway, so with Michael, and it's not just Michael, the people who heal and who have that kind of an attitude that Michael had, they will always say, cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. Right now, it chokes me up because I interviewed Michael, and it's so powerful, his story, and the way the humility and the inspiration behind his battle with his disease and how it was completely cured using Gerson.
Even for me, who's followed Gerson since I met him in a book called Death Be Not Proud that I read in 2008, The
Oh,
great book,
wow.
right? You get to see Gerson in the 1940s, right? Treating people in New York City, people who'd been sent home to die. And I mean, I was so inspired. I that's when I dove in. So I've been interested in reading and going to the clinic, when I had my cancer experience. And
So that's how you were exposed to Gerson, through the book? That's
yes,
your first exposure to him?
that totally my first exposure. And honestly, I don't know how I got that book.
In closing, I guess I would just say that we live in a culture and a society that's bent on our demise. And, we've taken the bait with a lot of stuff, whether it's diet, whether it's, cellular technology today. And, people have to wake up and start taking their health into their own hands by converting over to a more vegetable and fruit-based diet. And they have to start getting rid of all the toxic chemicals within our environment,
Mm-hmm.
the
Right.
cleaning household products and cosmetics and, all these things that we have in our environment, because cancers now, for lack of a better word, has become pandemic, so to speak.
Yes.
And yeah, it has. And
Yes.
it's just going to get worse. So
Mm-hmm.
people have to really start looking into Gerson, not just for treatment, but for prevention as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was Hippocrates that said, "Let food be thy medicine." We've forgotten that.
And let your medicine be thy food.
There you go.
That's exactly right. That's what he said.
Oh, that's the full quote. Yeah.
He also said, first, do no harm. And that's the medical doctor's oath, the Hippocratic oath.
Mm-hmm.
And the first line is, first, do no harm.
Yeah.
Consider that and what they're doing in conventional medicine today.
Yeah. Mm.
So,
Well, this has been eye-opening for me, who I've been learning and doing the Gerson therapy for years, and I learned things that I didn't know. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for doing what you do. I thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. I mean, look, if 100 people come to our clinic, if 10 to 15 of them actually do it the entire 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
And you're one of those people who actually did it. And so,
Yes.
that's always inspiring for me.
Well, I'm very proud of myself.
You should be.
It wasn't always easy, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. So
That's
I stuck
exactly
with it.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts to there's no shortcuts to healing.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. If you enjoyed this conversation, please leave a review in your podcast app. Cancer Talks is a platform for anyone who has been touched by cancer. Write to us at info@cancertalks.com if you have a story to share. If you'd like to be in community with other cancer thrivers seeking personal transformation, join us for free workshops on Zoom. Visit cancertalks.com/Zoom to register. If you're moved to donate, please visit cancertalks.com/donate.